Hello, my name is Hayes Jumper. I'm a writer and a reader and a lot of other stuff. I'm here today to present to you a 2021 reading year in review. This is the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm going to talk about everything. I'm going to talk about all the physical books that I have here stacked beside me. I'm going to talk about ebooks I read. I did not listen to any audiobooks this year, which is such a damn shame. I love audiobooks. What is wrong with me? I guess I've been home a lot. I haven't been driving much, and that's typically when I listen to my audiobooks, so I have for reference here my failed bullet journal, inside of which there is a list of books that I have read this year. I have read 24 books so far, almost 25, which, let's talk about that. Let's talk about my reading goal and why I did not meet it. And I'm not beating myself up about it, by the way. Just the facts, I didn't meet my Goodreads reading goal, and that's okay. Last year in 2020, I read 38 books. And this year, I've read 24. And that's fine. That's 24 more books than a lot of people read, and it's not even like it's a contest anyway. Reading should not be competitive, I don't think. That's just my 2 cents, though. So yeah, all that being said, this is my 2021 reading year in... I don't know why I did that with my hands. All that being said, this is my 2021 reading year in review. Let's go. So the first book I read this year is by an author who has become one of my favorite authors, but I did not love this book, and that is Homesick for Another World by Ottessa Moshfegh. Now, I love short stories. I love reading them. I love writing them. Everything. I love critiquing them. I love short stories. But there are 14 short stories in this book, and I liked 5 of them. Like, I marked 5 of them that I liked. And I don't remember any of the ones that I liked. Like, none of them stuck with me even. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5 because simply... it just didn't impress me that much. It was good. The prose was very staticky and fresh, but it just wasn't stellar to me personally. Moving on. The second book I read this year was a graphic novel, and that is In Real Life by Cory Doctorow and Jen Wang. Now, this one I gave a 4, I think. Either a 3 or a 4, definitely a strong 3.5, if we could do 0.5 stars on Goodreads. I loved the story of this. It's basically about a girl who plays this like World of Warcraft-esque game a lot, but she's really like shy and insecure in real life, but she's really good at this game, and it is very good. It's a very moving tale. On the front, it says a lovely graphic novel for gamer girls of all ages, which I think is a good description of it. It's YA, and so the story is great. I don't love the art style, though. I'm not 100% sold on it. I love the cover. I really do love the cover, but I don't love the art style. So take that for what you will. I do recommend this one, but art style is just not for me. Next up, I read most of The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I DNF'd it, and that's saying a lot for me as someone who loves adult fantasy. For me to DNF a book, and the thing is, I was enjoying it all the way up until the halfway point-ish. And then it just started taking all these weird turns, and the plot just felt very, convenient to me. Like, everything that happened was just so convenient, and I loved the characters. I don't remember any of their names now, but I did love the dynamic between a lot of the characters, but eventually I didn't even get up to the big, twist in the first book before I had to put it down. I couldn't do it. It just was not for me. That being said, the next book, book number 4 that I read, was actually a chapbook by Gloria Russell called All to Pieces. It is, I believe there are 3 stories in there. Basically like lesbian, cowgirl, vampires. Need I say more? I definitely gave it 5 stars. Honestly, I'm due for a reread, for sure. It came out just this year, actually, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, if I'm remembering right, but highly, highly recommend if you're looking for queer short stories. Very, very good. Book number 5 of the year is a mediocre one, and I'm going to get a lot of conflicted opinions about this, but what I talk about when I talk about Running by Haruki Murakami, this one is... The reason I say it's mediocre is that it was sold to me as something that it is not, and that is more of a writing memoir than a running memoir. That's why I picked it up, because I listened to a podcast called Books Unbound, and that's how the host of that podcast sold this book to me. That's what made me get it, and it's just not about writing. Like, there's little anecdotes in there comparing writing to running, but it's about running, and I don't care about running, so I gave it a 3. It was good. It was fine. Yeah, that's about it. And I want to give a quick shout out to books 6, 8, and 9 that I read this year, and that is the Pretty Little Liars series. I loaned my copy of the first book to a friend, so I don't have it right now where I would show it off, but the Pretty Little Liars series, 5 stars to all 3 books that I've read so far in my rereading journey of this series. It's very important to my life and my heart and my soul. What's funny is, if it came out now, I don't think I would be interested in it. Like, if it was something that was new in 2021, I don't think I would have wanted to pick it up. It's just great. It's just so cheesy and dramatic, and I once heard the genre of, like, YA from that time, like older YA, being compared to, like, cake, because it's not good for you, but damn does it taste good. And that is how I feel about the Pretty Little Liars series. But book number 7 that I read and loved, I gave it 4 stars, Universal Love by Alexander Weinstein. This is a collection of short stories about love, how love evolves as technology evolves. And 2 particular stories have stuck with me, and they are just so good. And I read it in February in the spirit of Valentine's Day, and honestly, a very good February read. Highly recommend. Book number 10 of 2021, The Cyborg Tinker by Meg Latour. This is a sci-fi / steampunk debut from Meg Latour. It's got a lot of queer representation. It features our main lady, our main protagonist is polyamorous. Makes me feel pretty seen. But it's a very moving tale, very plot and character driven. Everything is dynamic, everything is changing. I loved this book. I really did. And plus the cover is beautiful. I know my MacBook camera doesn't show any of these covers very nicely, but yes. Moving on to book number 11, The Map of Salt and Stars by Zain Jukadar. It's a fairy tale and a real life tale woven into one. It's the story of 2 young girls, one in the real world and one in this fairy tale. And the girl in the real world, her home has been destroyed by a bomb, and she lives in Syria, and she has to flee to get somewhere safe. And so her and her family become refugees, but alongside, like every other chapter, it's the story of this mapmaker's apprentice who is disguising herself as a boy to just get by. And there's like magical creatures and stuff, and I gave this a 4, I think. It wasn't quite a new favorite, but it was pretty good. Very much recommend this one for sure. Book number 12. I'm very excited to talk about this one because it's just, and I'm gonna sound so basic, but this one really is so important to me, and that is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This book, I read it when I was Charlie's age at the beginning. I read it when I was like 12 or 13, maybe 14 actually. Yeah, one of those. If you don't know what The Perks of Being a Wallflower is about, I have so much pity for you, but for real, go read this book. I don't care who you are, I don't care what kind of stuff you like. It's an epistolary story told in letters, like kind of journal entries or letters, to someone named just friend, like begins every letter with dear friend. And it's a coming-of-age tale about this kid named Charlie, and he just has a lot of problems, like, both in his head and in his life, and, well, it's more like the people around him have problems, but he's very empathetic, and he's a very sensitive lad, and it's just a beautiful book. It's just beautiful. 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. Book number 13 is the second and last graphic novel I've read this year, which is a tragedy, but that is An Embarrassment of Witches by Sophie Goldstein and Jen Jordan. I am obsessed. I'm still obsessed with this graphic novel. Firstly, the color palette and the art is just beautiful. I love it so much. But it's also an adult graphic novel, not in that it has adult content, but like it's meant, the target audience is like people who are fresh out of college or maybe still in college, or just like young adults in general. Not young adults, like people my age. But basically it's a story of 2 childhood best friends. As they've become adults, their friendship is kind of faltering, and will they make amends? Will they not? Who knows? But also, this book is set in like kind of a fantasy world where magic exists, and it's just very mundane, it's very normal. And the world building in here, while very subtle, is just so rich. I love it. 5 out of 5. I'm not so excited to talk about this next one, Office Girl by Joe Menno. This was a random ass find at a used bookstore. I just found it. And the formatting is really neat, I think. There's like raindrops drawn in there, but the story sucks. I did not like either of the characters. It's like a romance, but I don't even remember anything about it, if that tells you anything. Like, it's not memorable. It's just too, like, quirky, look at me. Like, it's a very pick-me book, and I gave it like 2 out of 5 stars, I think, but I did finish it. Book number 15 of the year, Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. This one has been a favorite of mine literally since I was in like 7th grade. In 7th grade, I actually read this book. This was the only book I read that year, pretty much. And I read it back to back to back because I was so obsessed with it. But it's a YA retelling of Peter Pan, but it's like a romance between Peter Pan and Tiger Lily before Wendy is in the picture. It's very like brooding and dark and dramatic, and represents Tiger Lily in a much more respectful way than the cartoon does. 5 out of 5 stars still. I reread it this year, made me so happy, but also so sad. It's a book that, like, it's hard for me to read, genuinely, because it's so heartbreaking. But I still want everyone to read it so bad. So bad. Book number 16 of the year was definitely a cover buy, but here it is. Bug by Giacomo Sartori. And just take a minute to look at this. Like, how cool is that? There's like bees on the back. Or bugs, I don't know if they're bees, but I'm gonna tell you, it was a cover buy, but it was also a synopsis summary buy. And I'm going to read you part of that and tell you why I thought it was interesting. In the singular world of the young, deaf narrator of Bug, there are just a handful of people who try to understand him when he gets into trouble at school. His father, a data analyst for Nutella, whose real job is to pinpoint terrorists, is clueless about humans in real life. His brilliant brother, called IQ in public and Robin Hood in the hacker sphere, has his back but is even busier training his robot. Like, that sounds really cool. That's not at all what this book is about, though. It's just, this kid, his mom is in a coma, and it's literally just about him causing trouble because he's sad that his mom is in a coma. It's not about anything else, really. Which, it's not even really a moving tale. I think I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, I think. It'd be more like a 2.5 because the prose was pretty nice. But the plot and the characters just sucked. Book number 17, I am very excited that I read this year, and that is The Stepford Wives by Ira Levin. I watched the movie for this, the good one, the original movie, when I was a kid, and I loved it, and so I was like, why not get the book? Why not read the book? And so I did, and the only thing keeping me from giving it 5 out of 5 stars was the fact that the ending was just so abrupt. Like, it just was wrapped up very poorly, I thought, but everything else about it was fantastic. One of the best books I read this year, but it's still not a favorite because I'm so pissed about how it ended. But if you don't know what The Stepford Wives is about, it's basically about this family of 4, wife, husband, and their 2 kids, who moves to Stepford, and the women there act weird, and Joanna, the protagonist, is like, what's up with that? Chaos ensues, basically, and it's a very good book. I highly recommend it if you are going to be okay with the ending kind of sucking. Book number 18 that I read, I did not read the whole thing. I read 2 of the stories and then I DNF'd it, but that is The Ice Cream Man and Other Stories by Sam Pink. The cover is beautiful. I should have read in... You're not creative just because you hit enter a lot. I don't know, like, you're not special and fancy just because you know how the enter button works. And also, why are non-black authors using the N-word in their writing in the year 2019, I think is when that was published? I don't know, that just rubs me a little bit the wrong way, so I put it down, and all is well now. 1 or 0 out of 5 stars for sure. Book number 19, to flip things around, The Factory by Hiroko Oyamada. This book is... I say that everything is a commentary on capitalism, but this book is, in my opinion, definitely a commentary on capitalism. It follows 3 workers at this factory. It's just called The Factory. It's like a huge factory. But basically, it follows 3 characters. 1 character shreds paper, 1 proofreads documents, and another studies the moss growing all over the expansive grounds. And they, like, lose their sense of self as they're working at this factory, and it's eventually like, where does the factory end and life begin, if that makes sense? Once again, the ending was a little abrupt. It's a pretty short book. It's only like 116 pages long, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, I believe. Very thought-provoking, very interesting, right up my alley when it comes to literature about, like, with a theme. Capitalism as a theme in fiction is important to me. I love that. So, book number 20 was a reread. It has become an autumn tradition for me to read this book starting last year, and that is Starlight by Hannah Lee Kidder. This is a collection of, like, spooky, dark short stories that she published last October. I was very honored to be a beta reader both for the whole collection and for some of the stories within. So I got to see this before, like, everybody else, and this collection is very near and dear to me. And also the stories are just fire. They're just fire. 5 out of 5 stars for this boy for sure. Both times 5 out of 5 stars. Both times. Book number 21 of the year was also a reread, and that is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is a nonfiction book about creative living beyond fear. Basically, it's not just for artists, but it's mainly for, like, creative people. there's a lot of anecdotes in there, but it's about like granting yourself permission to create and live a creative life and pursue the things that you want to pursue, even if they're not going to make you money, if you have the means to do so, of course. But 5 out of 5. I read this when I was 16 at first, and I've read it like 50,000 times since then. Okay. The next 3 books that I have, I am so stoked to talk about all of them. Because I read them all this month. I've read 3 books this month so far. And I'm probably, if things go well, going to have read 4 by the end of the month. So fingers crossed. But I'm so excited to talk to you about book number 22 of the year. And that is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. Now, this book made me a believer. I believe in Ottessa Moshfegh. I would follow her to the ends of the earth. This book is about a woman who is young, thin, pretty, rich, has everything in the year 2000. And she's in her 20s, and both of her parents die, and so she inherits a lot of money. And she decides that she is going to spend the year resting and relaxing, and by that I mean finding a shady psychiatrist to prescribe her shady drugs to make her sleep. And chaos ensues. 5 out of 5 stars. Beautiful, devastating. Love this one. Book number 23 of the year is The Dominant Animal by Catherine Scanlon. This is a collection of flash fiction and short stories. This is also the first book this year that I started to annotate because I'm getting into annotating. And I also wrote in here a lot with pen. You can't see it, but I wrote a lot with pen in here and highlighted passages and lines. The prose in this, I described it to a friend as crisp and quick, like biting into an apple. That's what the prose is like to me in this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 freaking stars. So good, and also I can't get enough of the cover and the colors. It's just so beautiful. This book inspired me to start writing my flash fiction again. I finished 2 short stories since I read this, so that's progress for sure. And the last book that I have read this year so far is book number 24, How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. I have had this book since like 2019, I think. No, 2020. I've had this book since 2020. And I annotated this one as well. Lots of points in there. It went from a 5 to a 4 to a 3 as I read, because it was a 5 at first because it has so much, it has all these nuggets of just so like amazing information and thought-provoking takes on social media and the attention economy and everything, but it's all those nuggets are scattered throughout long tangents about random stuff. I'm just not into that, so 3 stars, because I still did like it a lot and thought it was I'm glad I read it. It was a very good, important read, but I don't think I would read it again. I would like skim through it and look at what I highlighted and marked and everything, but I don't think I would read the whole thing again. And then I wanted to finish off the video with a quick shout out to what I am reading right now and what I'm planning to read for the rest of the year. Right now I am reading finally Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and I have this beautiful blue and black edition. I am on page 150, and I started it yesterday at the time of filming. Maybe the day before, I'm not sure. I'm liking it so far. Darlington is definitely my favorite character. I am actually a little bit in love with him, I think. But I don't really know a whole lot yet. It's kind of slow going, honestly. It's riveting, but the plot is revealed to you very slowly. and out of order a little bit. So it's kind of confusing at times, but so far I'm feeling a strong 4, but we'll see. And I just realized I don't have the books that I'm reading in December with me, so I'm gonna go grab those. I'll be right back. There are 3 books that I'm planning to read in December. Obviously I can read more than that if I want to, but these are just my main 3. And the first one is Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. He's one of my favorite short story authors, and I thought if he had any nuggets of writing wisdom to share, I ought to listen. Also, I really love this 80s, 90s-esque cover. This is an old copy that I got from Thrift Books, but I love her and cherish her. Speaking of old copies, my partner bought me 3 books from our local used bookstore the other day, and one of them was A Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain, which this is a beautiful edition. The pages, the paper is so smooth, and it's just, I'm so excited to read this one. It's going to be my first classic in a long time, so I'm a little nervous. Basically, a guy gets knocked in the head and wakes up. He's from like Industrial Revolution times, you know? Gets knocked in the head and wakes up in King Arthur's Camelot. And hilarity ensues. At least that's what I've heard. I don't really know much, but I'm excited to get into this one next month. And last but not least, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Philyaw. This is a collection of short stories about black women and girls in, like, I believe it's about black women and girls in religious situations, I think, but the title is what really drew me in, and the cover. This is a beautiful cover. I don't typically like when there's people on the covers, but this is an exception. I'll make an exception for this one. So yeah, that's all my book talk for today. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end if you did that for some reason. I'm not trying to really gain a following out of this. I'm just doing this for fun. I do want people to watch it, so if you like it and want more, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all later. Have a beautiful day. Adios.